Hello, everyone. We are here tonight doing a live interview with author Wanda Luthman. She is a children's book author, and I'm very glad she could stop in tonight. We've been having some technical difficulties, but I hope we have worked through at least most of them. So I'll let Wanda introduce herself.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ashley, so much for having me here tonight. I'm super excited to be here and doing this live thing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. My name is Wanda Luthman, as Ashley said, and I'm a children's author, and I have published 5 books so far. Two of them are picture books. So for younger audiences, 0 to 5, like you're reading to them, and then 3 chapter books that are for the older, little bit older child, maybe 7 to 11, third, fourth grade.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about your books or any books in particular?
Okay, my most recent book that I published is a picture book called Frankie the Finicky Flamingo. And he's a funny little flamingo who appears to be picky because he doesn't like the food that the other birds eat until he finds his food that, he makes him healthy and happy. So that's my latest book, and I'm super excited to have it out. It was like last January when I started the process of bringing it to life. And by the time you edit and you find an illustrator and all of that, it came out as an ebook in November, but we just got the paperback in January. So it's great to finally see it come to life. It's one of my favorite things. And my other picture book is Little Birdie Grows Up, and it's about a little bird who comes out of his shell and he just longs to fly. And so it's kind of about perseverance and, pursuing your dreams and stuff like that. My other books that are chapter books, I guess the other thing I should mention is I'm a high school guidance counselor. So I like to put positive messages in all my books. So my chapter books have messages to them too. So the first one I wrote was called The Lilac Princess. And it's about a princess who she wants to go outside the castle walls and visit the lilac patches, but she can't because it's not safe. And so, of course, she sneaks out, and of course, she meets a dragon, and there's a whole big adventure there. But in the end, the message is about forgiveness and healing and all that. Of course, in the middle of that, there's bravery and courage and standing up for what you believe in. Some good messages there, but the core message is forgiveness. The second book that I wrote, chapter book that I wrote, was called A Turtle's Magical Adventure. And it's about a little turtle who doesn't like his shell because it makes him too slow. So the snake tells him, go see the wizard, you'll have it removed and be as fast as me. So he makes his journey up to the wizard and, of course, meets all different kinds of characters along the way that help him see the value in his shell. And so that story is about self-acceptance. And then last year, I published a book called Gloria and the Unicorn, which is the first in a series. And it's about a little girl who has a droopy face on one side, and she's in an orphanage, and they don't let her go to school because they're afraid she's going to be bullied. And so all she wants to do is learn to read. And so along comes this unicorn who helps teach her how to read, but then also teaches her, how to love herself and how love can overcome fear and empower her and stuff. So that's those are my books.
They sound great. I love children's books. I have lots of children, but I've always loved to read children's book even as an adult because I love the messages in them and the adventure.
Yeah, me too.
What's not to love?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm the
Yeah.
same.
Okay. Do you tend to keep to one genre or do you like to branch out?
So that's a good question. When I was, of course, little, I wrote all kinds of little books, and then I did always think one day I'm going to publish a book, but I really didn't know what kind of book I would publish. So before I became a guidance counselor, I worked as a licensed mental health counselor at the local community mental health center. And I used to think I would write a self-help book, but I just never felt like inspired or anything. And so one day I woke up and I just had this story like in my brain, and I started writing it, and that was The Lilac Princess. And I just feel like whenever I get inspired, it seems to be for children. And I did do chapter books, and then I did do picture books, and I feel like that's kind of my age group, that preschool to elementary. I'm pretty sure I'll never write a YA book. I don't feel like I can write for that age group. And I don't know if I'll ever write something for adults. I don't really think I'll ever write a self-help book, but I toss around the idea of maybe writing a memoir one day, something like that. But I'm just not inspired with any of that. I'm really just inspired with children's books. So right now I'm sticking to one genre.
And I mean, if that's what works for you, that's what you should stick with. I mean, if that's all the ideas that you're getting, then that's fine. I mean, that's working fine for you. I mean, your books are great.
Thank you. Thanks. And I
I know,
enjoy it. It makes me happy, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's if that's what you need to write, then that's what you need to write. I mean, there's
Right.
nothing wrong with sticking with the same genre.
Mhm.
I like to branch out to different ones, but my mind jumps from thing to thing so much that that's just kind of how I work. But there's plenty of authors in different genres that just stick to that genre, and you know
Mhm.
they're happy, they're successful. That's
Mhm.
what works for them, and that's fine. Everybody has their own different way to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Which was your favorite book to write so far?
Well, I feel like that's a difficult question. I think probably my favorite book is The Lilac Princess, because that story just came to me like in this whole rush. And I really haven't had that experience since then. And I wrote it, and I mean, I wrote it 17 years ago. And I kind of let it sit on a shelf, and then later on, brought it out to actually publish. And I reread it, after years of sitting on the shelf. And I realized, even though it was inspired by my daughter, it was really a lot about me, which, happens. You write about you, right? And kind of my journey in my life, with forgiveness and everything. And so I think I feel the closest to that book, because I feel like there's so much of me in there. I love all my books, definitely. And I love my latest book the best right now, because I finally saw it come to life now, and be out there, interacting with people. But I probably would have to go back to my first book as my favorite.
Yeah, that was your first baby.
It's my first baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, what do you love the most about the writing process itself? What is your favorite thing about that?
I think what I love the most is when you get that spark of inspiration. I might just be walking along and all of a sudden have some inspiration, or I might be riding my bike. I like to ride my bike. We have a real pretty area along the river that's kind of inspirational. You might be sitting at a stoplight, who knows? And it's just so cool when you get this inspiration that hits you, and you're like, oh, I got to write this down. To me, that's the most exciting part. I love putting flesh on the bones after that, and fleshing it all out and making a story. But I think the most exciting part is that flash of inspiration.
Yeah, that is pretty fun
Yeah.
because it could just come out of nowhere sometimes, and you're just
Yeah.
like, whoa. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
exactly.
Hmm.
Um, okay, what do you what do you hate about it, or maybe not hate, but dread about the writing process itself?
I don't know that there's really anything I dread. I love writing the story. And I really don't even mind editing. I know some people would probably dread the editing process, but I don't mind the editing and kind of what I call massaging the story. I go back and I massage it a little more, and I walk away from it. I come back, and all of that I enjoy. Um, Even working with my editor, who will like edit it and send it back, and we go back and forth until we have it just right. I actually kind of really enjoy that, having like a second pair of eyes once you get it all down. And it might even spark a few more things that really helps flesh the story out. So I mean, I enjoy that too. um, and right now, I thankfully have found like a really good team of people for making the book cover, editing and formatting and stuff. Before now, I've really struggled with different pieces and finding the right people that I could work with, and it would come together. So right now, got a good team, and all of that's good. So I really don't think there's any part of writing I don't like. It's really more figuring out the marketing piece, which I knew zero about when I started. And I also knew zero that I was supposed to do marketing. So, and I'm shy. And so I was like, I don't know how to do this. And
That's
so
the
that
real hard part.
that's the hard part. And
Yeah.
so like really trying to launch a book, that okay, we're going to put it out in the world. How are we going to get people to see it and know that it's out there? That first initial launch, and then kind of following up with that. That's to me, I guess, probably more what I dread, because I just feel like I'm not good at it.
I understand that. You and me both. I get that.
Yeah.
You were talking about inspiration earlier, different places that you might get inspiration. Do you have some more examples of where or when that you find inspiration for your stories?
Yeah. So, of course, I feel like a lot of them come from my personal life. Of course, the Lilac Princess, she was an only child. My daughter's an only child. Not really, though. My husband has other children, but she's my only child. But so she was my inspiration for that story. But the turtle, the turtle story, a turtle's magical adventure, she had a pet that was a turtle, and she had named him Tad, which is kind of a funny name for a turtle because you think of tadpole, which is a frog, but that's what she wanted to name him. And it was funny because we just had a little bitty aquarium for him. And my husband's like, he really needs like a little bridge where he can take a rest and he's not just swimming all the time. So we got him a bigger aquarium with a little bridge and a light. And when we put him in there, he would crawl up on his bridge and then jump off. And he'd crawl up on his bridge and jump off. He was so cute how he was so excited. And so we loved watching him. And then when you turn the light on, his shell just, I mean, it was like all these multicolors all over his shell. And we're like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful. And so he was really the inspiration for that story. And so even though it's kind of in my own way related to my daughter, you know, that uh really Gloria and the Unicorn was interesting because I was riding my bike in a new area where I hadn't ridden before, and I saw a white miniature horse alone in a pasture, and I'm like, he has a story to tell. So he was my inspiration. And it was so interesting because when I went to start writing about him, the little girl with the droopy face showed up, and I was like, oh, well, where did you come from? How characters do that. And I'm like, oh, you really have the story to tell. It was just really such a backwards way to get to that story, but it was really cool how that happened. Little Birdie grows up. I was actually having lunch with one of my girlfriends after my daughter left college, and she said I was bemoaning, empty nest syndrome. And my girlfriend said, you should write a book about a little bird who grows up and leaves the nest. And it took me about a year, but I got inspired. And Little Birdie, actually, it was in a story. And then I saw enough words that rhymed that I thought I could make this into a rhyming picture book. And so I pared it down to a rhyming picture book. And so that was my first picture book. And then Frankie, my daughter, was a super picky eater. She would not eat peanut butter and jelly. We were trying to find something we could pack for school, and she was just like, wouldn't even eat it. She liked pepperoni. And I felt like a horrible mom sending her to school with pepperoni slices, but that's all she would eat. I was super picky. My husband was picky. So kind of, it all made sense to do something picky. So pretty much it comes from my own life experiences.
That's great. I mean, I love to hear the stories about how people get the inspiration for their stories and just, how some of them can come out of the blue and some of them are based on real experiences or real people you know. And I think it's great. I love hearing the stories about where everyone gets their inspiration for their books. I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah, it is fun to hear the creative process.
Yeah, I saw a huge turtle on the road today and I thought of your book, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a huge turtle. I thought I was going to hit him. I was like, get off the road. Okay, you're good.
Yeah, yeah.
Stay safe, Tad.
Yep.
Stay off the road, please.
Stay off the road.
Yeah, please, please. Um, I'm that person. I will stop and save turtles. I will
Yep,
turn my car around and go back and get a turtle off the road.
yep,
I'm that person. Everybody else on the road hates me, but I'm going to save that turtle.
that's
Move
right.
out of the way.
That's right.
This guy was already off the road when I came back. I was like, stay there. So that was good. It was a good one today. It was a good experience. I didn't have to save
Good,
anybody.
good to
He
hear.
saved himself. Um, okay, can you tell us about the defining moment in your life when you realized that you were a writer? When you just kind of it clicked for you that you were like, this is what I'm meant to do.
This, it is so interesting because when I was little, I wrote books all the time, like the kind where you staple them together and stuff. And it wasn't even for classroom assignments. It was just in me, to write. And I loved writing. But what was interesting is I didn't get really any support, shall we say. I remember showing my first book to my mom, and she kind of patted me on the head, cute, honey, and just off with you. And all my little books, I had them in a bottom drawer in my dresser. And I remember my sister, she must have found them, and she's 8 years older than me. So she was in the room with her boyfriend, and they were reading my books. I remember hearing them through the door, and they were laughing. They just thought it was hilarious. And so I wasn't really mad, but I was kind of like, that's interesting. They're laughing at my stories because I don't think I meant them to be funny. I think just it was funny because she was older than me and they were childish. And so, it wasn't really like anybody was like, hey, you should do that. You're good at that or anything. So I never did pursue it like a profession. When I went off to college, I took 16 credits of literature because I loved reading and analyzing books and talking with people about them. I absolutely love that. And I think that is important when you're going to write and stuff. But still, I didn't think about being a writer. I studied psychology and I went into that field and I love it. I'm glad I did all the things I did. So then when that book, The Lilac Princess, came to me and I wrote it down, I knew I wanted to do something with that. I just wasn't sure how. And, I went through trying to get it traditionally published and all of that. And I did actually have somebody give me some positive feedback and stuff like he said he would read future editions of it. But then when I sent it back to him, I didn't hear from him. So, it's kind of back and forth until I finally decided to self publish. And I remember, like, I got it out there and I started sort of networking with other authors. And I remember the first time I introduced myself as an author, not just a writer, I'm an author. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is a profession for me now. It's not just a hobby. And that was an amazing feeling. And that was just, like 4 years ago. So recent.
That's cool. I did that too. When I was a kid, I thought I was the only kid that made the books and stapled them all together and like did like special little covers for them. I thought that was just me.
Oh,
And now one of my kids does that too. She
oh,
makes little books for me and I'm like, "Oh, it's mini me."
yeah. Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, now that I'm an adult, I find out that there were other kids out there that did that too. So I
I
was like, "Oh,
know.
okay."
When I first shared that on some blog or something, people were like, I can't remember the word they used, but it was sort of like, everybody says that. And I was like, oh, they do? Again, I was like you. I thought I was the only one
I,
who had
I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood that did that. They all thought I was a weirdo.
right. Yeah,
Like,
no,
that
no,
wasn't going down in my school. I was like, I was like, who are these people that now everyone says they used to do that? Were they doing it in secret? Because I wasn't in on this.
right, me neither. Yeah, me neither.
Okay. Do you read more indie or trade books, or do you read kind of an even mix of both?
Well, that's a very good question. I read a lot of indie books because I've started picking up and reading children's books because somewhere along the way I thought that would be a good thing to do. Um, Prior to that, I was reading, you know, romance or whatever, kind of adult books, and just for my own entertainment. I mean, the other books I read a lot of are spiritual books. I've gotten into meditation, and I read a lot of uh, different professionals or whatever leaders in meditation and stuff. And I like to read all that kind of stuff. So I was reading a lot of that, and I thought, it would probably be a good idea if I read other children's books and kind of got an idea what was going on out there besides me. And so now my TBR list is huge. And as I started reading them, I realized how much I enjoy them. So and I think 99% are indie, and just a couple of them are traditional. And I love them. Great writers, all of them.
That's cool because I find myself now reading more children's indie books too,
Hmm.
like more than I ever did before.
Me
And
too.
I mean, a lot of them are really good. So,
Really good. Yeah,
yeah.
very, very good.
Do you have a favorite trade author or a favorite indie author in any genre? I mean, it doesn't have to be children's, but I mean, who would you say your favorite is to read?
Well, I mean, as far as like my favorite children's books, um, that are like from when I was a child, of course, my favorite is Charlotte's Web. I love that story, and the Winnie the Pooh stories, and those were really kind of my go-to books when I was a kid. Um, but now, I don't think, I mean, I can't really say that I've read enough books to say I have a favorite indie author, but somebody I'm reading right now, her name is Lee Marsh, and she wrote a three-part series. Um, and I don't know what the series is called, but I'm on the last one, and it's called Triple Quest. And I just love the characters and the setting, and it's like someplace I would want to be, you know. And so I'm really enjoying her stories right now. So that's sort of where I'm at right now.
All right. Um, do you prefer a story that wows you with its world building or one that is more emotional, or hits you really in the feels department? Which would you prefer?
I am definitely all about the feels, being a guidance counselor, I care all about the heart. And so I'm more into that, something that would make me feel something. Then, I mean, I love The Hobbit and all that, the worlds and all that. That's fabulous. But what really gets me is the feels.
I have to agree with you. I mean, I love great world building. That's
Yeah.
great. And I did love the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit books because of the world building. But I
Yeah.
feel like I might have liked them even more if I had been taken a little bit deeper emotionally, I think they might have been a little higher on my bookshelf.
Right, right. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, can you think of a few indie authors that you've read that you wish more people knew about?
Well, Lee Marsh, she's one that she's a UK author, but um, I think, so I don't know if she's more well known over there or not, but in the United States, I think they should pick up her books and read them. I think children would love them. She has I could almost see them being movies, the way the characters are and how they interact, and you could just see them acting. I could just see somebody up on stage. So I think it would be a good show. But so her for sure. That's sort of the books that I've been really drawn to lately. The other ones that I read before then were maybe more picture books, and so they weren't as lengthy and I mean they were good, but they're not sticking with me quite like that one. Hers are.
See, now I have to go find her books.
Yep, you gotta go find them.
I have to go find her books now.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years as far as your writing? Do you have a writing goal? Which is where do you see yourself about 5 years from now?
So I do have a writing goal. When I started, I have 12 years until I can technically retire. And so my plan was to publish as many books as I can and try and build, an audience and figure all the marketing stuff out so that when I do retire, I can kind of devote myself to writing and maybe even speaking and some different things like that. So that's the long term, 12 years out goal. And so I try to bring out 3 books a year. That I have found is difficult. I thought I could do one in the spring, I could do one in the summer, one in the fall. But I almost feel like I'm pushing myself too hard. It just feels like a little bit too much. So um, I might cut it down to 2. I've written 3 other picture books, and those uh, the deal with getting those out is they're long because you're relying on somebody else to do the illustrating, and it just is their time frame, you know. So I don't know if how many will be able to get out this year. I was invited last year to submit a story to be part of a children's anthology, and so that came out at Christmas time. And so that book is kind of my part in there is something that she said I could take out and make my own book after a little bit after the anthology's been out a while. And so that one's like ready to go. So I probably can get that one out and then maybe a couple of picture books. So anyway, in 5 years, that would mean, 15 books, right? And I have 5 under my belt, so that would be 20. That's a lofty goal. I don't know if I'll make it or not, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
Well, I mean that's a great goal to have, and even if you don't quite make that many, that's still great. I mean, you've still done 5, and that's still great. I mean, even if you just do 2 a year from now on, you're
Right.
still doing something. I mean, you're still working towards your goal.
Right. Right. Yep, for sure. Yeah. I can write them faster than I can publish them.
Oh yeah. If only it was as easy to publish them as it is to just
Right.
write them.
That's the truth.
Oh yeah. Do you have any advice that you would give to other independent or self-published authors, either those that are publishing with a small company or are self-publishing themselves, especially those that are just starting out? What advice would you give to them?
Well, I feel like I made every mistake in the book. I knew nothing when I started. So my first book, The Lilac Princess, I didn't know what self-publishing really was. So all I knew all the ads I got were like from quote a vanity press, which I guess people don't like to use that term anymore. But um, I paid a lot of money to have that book published. And after I did that, then I started networking with other authors, and they really helped me see how I could do it more myself. And so I would really encourage a new author or somebody just starting out to network before they just jump in there. It'll save you a lot of money and heartache and all of that. There,
Ask all the questions.
Ask all the questions because there's a couple of really fabulous local groups that really taught me everything I knew. And then I got in online and started meeting a bunch of authors online, which I just can't believe how supportive the indie community is. So really that would be my biggest advice is to get out there and network and ask the questions. And it's hard. You have to find people you can trust because you will get sold hook, line, and sinker, all kinds of things. But that's to me the best thing to do is to network.
And that's good advice. I mean, that's advice I would definitely get behind because before you just jump in there and do it, because I did the same thing. I just kind of dove in there. I didn't know what I was doing. I
Yeah.
dove right in the water. I did not have my arm floaties on. I started drowning. So yeah,
Yep.
you have to ask all the questions. You have to talk to
Mm.
people that do know, people that have been around for a while, people that can tell you you're gonna drown. What are
Yeah.
you doing? Get out of there. So yeah, you that's good advice, definitely, because you definitely need to network and talk to people who do know what they're talking about, so you
Yeah.
can learn. You've got
Yeah.
to learn all the stuff,
Right.
learn all the
Yeah.
things, ask all the questions. So
Not
yeah,
to make all the same mistakes as other people did. Learn from them. Hmm.
yes, yeah. I've definitely made all the mistakes. I'm probably still making them. So,
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah,
but we were learning, so it can only get better, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and I've learned so much already. It's only been 4 short years, but I've learned a lot. So, yep, I think it is always a learning curve because marketing is always changing and things are always changing. So you always just have to, keep learning. Oh, I lost your audio. Are you there? Oh, I can't hear you. Oh no.
I think I accidentally muted my mic. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I
My
can hear you.
fidgety fingers hit the mic. Sorry. Go ahead, hon.
So we were just saying how it's important to network and ask questions so you don't make all the same mistakes.
Yes. And that's good advice. That's really great advice. Um, do you have anything else you want to add? That's all the questions I have for you tonight.
Well, let's see. I think that's all the things I was going to say about my books and about me. And I think just the advice about the networking is I would start local. I think it's really important to get to know your local um, author groups and all that. And then, even when you're trying to market, I think it's easier to start local and make those connections face to face with independent bookstore owners and ice cream shops or wherever you want to try to have events and things. I think um, it's really fun when you can meet your young readers face to face, and it's why you do what you do. Sorry, that's the ice maker. And
That's okay.
and so to me that because at first I thought I needed to do everything online, and I was trying to do this online thing, and it's really hard to get seen online. And then I started doing a few local things, and that was where a lot of the excitement for me was because I met people locally who, children who liked my books and wanted their parents to buy my books and stuff. And I don't know, that enthusiasm kind of builds on itself. So that would be, I guess, my other piece of advice is to kind of start local. Certainly good to have an online presence. You need all of that and be working on that. But locally sort of gives you a little bit more momentum from the gate, from being out of the gate.
Good. Um, Because of our technical difficulties earlier, I do not at this time have all the links below for Wanda, but I will very soon. I'm going to have the links for her Facebook and her how to find her on Amazon and her books. So that will soon be available, and I hope that everybody checks her books out. I definitely liked Little Birdie. It was really cute. I read that one to my 4-year old. She thought it was adorable.
Oh, thank
So
you.
now I have to read Frankie because I
Yeah,
definitely have picky eaters, so I definitely need to read about Frankie.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Lots of picky eaters in my house, so that's going to be the next book that we definitely read together.
Oh, good. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, hope it helps.
Thanks. So thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming in live on YouTube on my channel and telling everybody about yourself and your books.
Hmm. Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for having me. It's been a blast. This has been great. So you're a great host.
Thank you. All right, well, we will see you later.
All
Bye.
all righty. Bye bye.